Just before this episode, here's how you can get more from Never a Truer Word. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe to this channel to get early access to the weekly analysis episodes, video episodes so you can see the statements as I analyse them, and exclusive content too. And if you're here on YouTube, then become a member of the channel to get early access to everything and exclusive content not available anywhere else. Hey, it's Jack and welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And this is going to be a divisive one because we're looking at Richard Allen at the time of recording, a suspect in the Delphi murders, the murder of two girls in Delphi. It's a very divisive case, and this analysis will divide lots of people. It divides me at times. I was really surprised. I thought I would sit on the fence on this one, but I've got some real firm conclusions as we go through the analysis. If you're a regular here, then you know what to expect. Cast aside everything. We're only going to look at statements. We're going to give you a unique take on the Delphi case that you will not get anywhere else, because we're going to throw out everything else that we know, think or believe, and we're only going to look at the words of this guy, Richard Allen. This has been a tough one for me to do because I like to get my words direct from the horse's mouth. However, we do not have Richard Allen on tape anywhere talking yet. I believe that might change when the trial is finished. So I've had to look at news reports from the court and transcriptions of the police interviews that were played out in court. So I'm going to look at them. I'm going to introduce some of the journalism words as well, so we set in context some of the things that Richard Allen says, because that is really important when analysing words. I've had to cast aside the views of people I respect as well, only to focus on those words. And that's what we do in this channel. We only focus on the words. So listen, evidence as it's been presented in court, not going to look at that at all in this. Certainly not going to look at rumours or feelings or beliefs or conspiracy theories into everything that happened. And also logic. So I would have done this, so he should have done that, or I would have done this and he's doing that. Not going to pay any attention to that at all. We're only going to focus on the words of Richard Allen and let the man talk for himself. Are you ready? Let's begin the analysis. Now, this is his first police interview. This is many, many years ago, and it's quoted in court as he said, "I had nothing to do with it. It's a horrible thing, and I don't want to be more involved than I already am." Now, that first statement there, I had nothing to do with it. It is straightforward. It is direct. I had nothing to do with it. He owns it as well by putting the pronoun I at the start of it. So that is kind of a denial, but we'll break into why it's not a full denial in a minute. But also that phrase, I had nothing to do with it, can mean I had nothing to do with it, very literal, but we use nothing to do with it quite often when we're part of a team, more than one person, and you feel like the other people have let you down or have done things that you're just not approve of, or you were not involved in at all. And instead of saying this wasn't me, we say I had nothing to do with it, and we normally say it was them or it was this person. I had nothing to do with it. I mention that because this is a theme that's going to come up time and time again in Richard Allen's words. Now, I mentioned it. This is not a proper denial because he's not saying what he had nothing to do with. It's nothing to do with it. He doesn't explain what it is. He says, I had nothing to do with it, and it's a horrible thing. So he's not quite saying what it is that he had nothing to do with. He's just saying it's it. Also, it is downplaying. We've got the murder of two girls here, and to downplay that to it softens the severity of what happened. It downplays what happened, and quite often we see that in the words of guilty people, that they will downplay the severity of what it is they're accused of when they are talking about it. They'll take the sting out of it. They will take the horribleness out of it and downplay it to softer words like it. I don't want to be more involved than I already am. Now, this is an interesting phrase, isn't it? Now, maybe, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He could consider himself involved at that moment in time because he is speaking to the police. I don't want to be more involved than I already am. So present tense, I am involved right now, but maybe he means his involvement is the fact that he's speaking to the police about it. However, it could mean other things, that he has some involvement in it, and that's where he feels his involvement ends. Involvement doesn't mean acting alone. It doesn't mean doing absolutely everything. Involvement is being, again, it's being part of something, but not the whole of something if you are involved in something. So we've got another concept here that of being part of something rather than being the whole something. I don't want to be involved more than I already am. He then goes on to say, I can't tell you what happened. If that picture was taken by those girls, it's not me. I never met them. I can't tell you what happened. That's an interesting one. I can't tell you what happened. It's not I don't know what happened. It's I can't tell you what happened. Is that I could tell you what happened, or I'm able to tell you what happened, but I can't tell you, as in my life would not be worth living if I told you what happened, or that inside of me I am not able to share that. It's I can't tell you what happened. It's not I don't know what happened. And then we have some interesting logic here. He says, if that picture was taken by those girls, it's not me. It's not, I'm not the person in the picture. I am not the person in the picture. That is not a picture of me. No, it's a qualified statement here. If that picture was taken by those girls, it's not me. In reality, what that boils down to is if the girls took the picture, it's not me. If someone else took the picture, it could be me. That's what the logic of that sentence says. If that picture was taken by those girls, it's not me. So again, this is not, I wasn't there. It's not at all, this could not be me. It's impossible that this is me. It's very qualified. If that picture was taken by those girls, it's not me. It's not me. It's not just a blanket, straightforward. It's not me. It's really, really qualified. He talks about those girls. Now, that could be a statement that shows some disdain for the girls. You know, you think about when you talk about those boys were around again last night. Is it that? Is that what he means by those girls? Is he creating some distance and showing some potential disgust or disdain for them? Those girls is an interesting way of referring to two murdered girls. Then he says, it's not me. I never met them. It's not me. I never met them. Interesting logic. Once again, you don't have to have met someone for them to have taken your photo. I'm sure we all have many photos of us taken by people we have never met. But that's his logic here, is that it cannot be him because he never met them. And he says, I never met them. I never met them. Now, never is a trigger word for me. Never often shows deception. Is that what we're seeing here? I never met them. But also compare it to this. I never met them is in the past tense versus I've never met them, which would be in the present tense and much more all-encompassing than I never met them. I never met them to me suggests at that time. I've never met them suggests of all time. But he seems to be, again, narrowing things down there. And interesting, I never met them. Met is a word we define in our head. What did he mean there by met? I never met them doesn't mean I never murdered them. I didn't kill them. It's just I never met them. So what does he mean by met? It could be an internal definition at play here that he's able to calm himself, ease his thoughts by saying, in my head, I never met them. Yeah, sure, I killed them, but I never met them. Could be what is going on there. The investigator puts to Richard Allen, you said you were there. You said you walked out to the bridge. And Richard Allen says, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Now, that's a compound question. You said you were there. You said you walked out to the bridge. And he says, no, I didn't. Didn't what? Didn't say he was there. Didn't say he walked out to the bridge. Or he wasn't there. He wasn't on the bridge. Didn't do what? Once more, we've got this seeming denial from Richard Allen, and yet he doesn't expand and say what it is that he's denying. It's very limited in scope. Again, is he giving the bare minimum words that sound like denials, but when we break them down, what is he denying here? Is he denying that he said those things, or is he denying that he did those things? Richard Allen then says, arrest me or don't. We're done here. We've got some ordering here. Arrest me or don't. He could have said this the other way round. He could have said, let me go or arrest me, but we're done here. So I think he thinks the most likely thing is the first thing that he mentions, because the first thing that we mention is the priority in our heads, it's the worry in our heads. Arrest me or don't. So I think he thinks it's highly likely that he is going to get arrested here. I should point out that doesn't mean he's guilty or he thinks he's guilty. It's what he thinks is the most likely thing to happen is that he is going to be arrested. But listen, arrest me or don't, we're done here. Is this the way that someone who wants to clear their name would talk? Is this the way that someone who has a priority of finding out who did this horrific act of murdering these two girls, is that the way someone whose priority is clearing this up, clearing their name, helping the police get on with the investigation? Is this the way they act? Arrest me or don't, we're done here. We're going to go now to 2022, and this is a formal police interview, and Richard Allen is talking about the first police interview that he gave, the one that we've just listened to. Richard Allen says, "Forgive me, it's been years, I've thought about it a lot." So it's been years means he has really an acute sense of this, because this was in 2022. 2017 was when he was first spoken to by police. So forgive me, it's been years, I've thought about it a lot. So this is not an indication of anything other than he has an acute sense of the time. And also remember this, it's been years, because it will come up later. And he admits, I've thought about it a lot. Now, again, not proof of guilt or proof of innocence, but certainly this incident has been something that has been on his mind for a long time. In his own words, it has been on his mind for these 5 years and something that he's thought about a lot. The journalist says that within the interview, Allen said he left the trails around 1:30 to 1:45 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, but added that he forgot the timing, really. Now that's qualified again. Forgot the timing, really. Not forgot the timing totally, just really. It's, it's all a little bit vague, but actually that means that he still has some sense of the timing. But what he's trying to show there is the phrase forgot the timing. But so often the truth leaks out, and so he can't just say I cannot remember the timing or I can't remember the timing. It is I forgot the timing, really. I don't believe he has forgotten the timing at all. That's way too qualified. And once more, we just have this downplaying of what happens. I've thought about it a lot, is what he says. Not I've thought about this murder a lot, or I've thought about what happened to those poor girls a lot. It's I've thought about it a lot. So all the time so far from Richard Allen, we are seeing downplaying of what happened. More from the same interview, and the police want to take a look at Richard Allen's phone. And he says, how long would you have my phone? How long would you have my phone? Once more, is this the vibe of someone who wants to clear his name? Is this the vibe of someone who wants to be really, really helpful? Or is this someone who is more concerned with other things, like how long is he going to be without a phone? Or how deep are they going to look into his phone? Maybe what that question is getting to. But this, again, is not really someone who wants to clear their name, who wants to help the wheels of justice flow. When he says, how long would you have my phone? Mullen, who is one of the investigators, read Allen the phone rights, to which Allen responded, I'm not going to be someone's fall guy. I was trying to be helpful. It honestly amazes me we're even talking. I don't want to be somebody's fall guy. This doesn't feel like a conversation. It seems like you think I've done this. I don't want to be associated with this thing any more than everyone else does. I can see the downplaying again, where he says, it seems like you think I've done this. And I don't want to be associated with this thing. It's at this point feels like he cannot bring himself to say out loud what has happened, the murder of two girls, and he cannot bring himself to talk about that with the full severity and disgust that most other people would be talking about it. It seems like you think I've done this, and I don't want to be associated with this thing. And this thing interested me as well. This thing is present tense. So that shows that it's still very much alive in his head. It's not that thing. It's not in the past tense. It's this thing, which shows very much that this is very much alive and present in his head at the point he was arrested and speaking to the police in October 2022. This thing being in the present tense. I notice a lot of talk about a third party here. I'm not going to be somebody's fall guy. I don't want to be somebody's fall guy. I don't want to be associated with this thing any more than everyone else does. So lots of mentions of other people, other parties. I don't want to be somebody's fall guy. Interesting that he has this third-party concept in his head. We saw it before with I don't want to be involved. We've got I don't want to be associated with this thing as well. Association is obviously, it's a joining word. It's about more than one thing coming together. But he talks about being somebody's fall guy. He talks about being associated, and he talks about everyone else. I spoke before about, is this a guy who is wanting to really clear his name, to help justice, to help find the killer of these girls? He says, I was trying to be helpful in that statement there. Now, that includes the word trying. Try suggests failure. I was trying to fix my car. If someone says that, you're pretty sure that they did not fix their car because they were trying to do it. So we have some failure acceptance there. I was trying to be helpful. Also in the past tense, I was trying to be helpful, suggests that he is no longer wanting to be helpful at all at this stage in the police proceedings. Helpful does not come into it there at all. He says, it honestly amazes me we're even talking. Now, honestly, he's pointing out how honest he is being here. Why is he doing that? Has he not been honest before? And he really wants to point out that at this time, I am being honest, and I'm putting a big flag up saying, it honestly amazes me we're even talking. Or is this a lie? Does it not amaze him that we're even talking? And really what he's doing is trying to convince them that this honestly amazes me. I'm trying to persuade you that I'm amazed here. So I'm going to use the word honest to make it seem like this is more truthful. I think from what we've seen and the priority already being on arrest, it doesn't amaze him at all that we're even talking. He was expecting the police to talk to him, and he is more than prepared for it. But interesting, this is a police interview, and he talks about talking, and it doesn't feel like a conversation. It amazes me we're even talking. This doesn't feel like a conversation. Well, this is a police interview. They are not always about talking and about conversation. This really is an interview, an interrogation. It's a one-way. The police ask the questions, you give the answers, and yet he seems to think about it as more a conversation, free-flowing. Maybe he was trying to get some information out of them about where the investigation is going, because he seems to be prepared for a two-way conversation with the police, again, rather than sitting down, answering questions, help clear his name, help clear this up, and help get justice for the girls. And then he says, I don't want to be associated with this thing more than everyone else does. Now, I read in many reports that the police interviews feature consistent denials from Richard Allen. Well, this isn't one of them. It does sound like a denial. I don't want to be associated with this thing more than everyone else does. But it's not. I didn't do it. It's not that at all. So where something might sound like a denial, when we break the words down and study the meaning of the words and what he's really saying, they could be much, much stronger. He could say, I didn't do it. And instead, we get this really vague, I don't want to be associated with this thing more than everyone else does. And interesting, is there an element of social proof going on here, which is when we are sitting there talking and we feel like we need to make our point stronger. So we kind of equate the fact that it's not just me that feels this way, everyone feels this way. So, it's not suspicious that I don't want to be involved in this. I don't want you asking me any questions. Everyone would feel the same. So I am not suspicious because I'm like everyone else. No one would like to be here in my position, where really truthful person just wants to talk about how they feel about things and how they react to things. In general, that's how truthful people behave. But he's come here to say, look, I'm just like everyone else. Nothing suspicious here. No, I'm just like everyone else. He says to the police, we're here because you haven't found the guy who did this. I don't want to become that guy. I had nothing to do with it. Interesting. We're, again, we're is a pronoun that suggests jointness and suggests unity. It's not I'm here because you haven't found the guy that did it. It's we're all here. Me, Richard Allen, and the police, you guys, we are here because you haven't found the guy that did it. So he feels some jointness or some unity in the process that's happening. More downplaying from Richard Allen. You haven't found the guy who did this, not the murderer. You haven't found the person that murdered those two girls. I had nothing to do with it. Again, downplaying the severity, not being open to the full horror of what happened. And we have him talking about the guy. We're here because you haven't found the guy who did this. Now, chances are it was a man, because statistically, that is how murders go. It's most often a man. But interesting that he doesn't say the person who did this, which would be kind of distant, and the fact that anyone in the world could have done this. He talks about the guy who did this, almost as if he's a little bit closer to it than if he'd said the person, the perpetrator, the murderer. It's the guy, a little bit closer than any of those alternative phrases that he used. But he says, I don't want to become that guy, using the word become. Interesting there, because to become something, you have to not be it in the first place. I don't want to become that guy. So what that says in words is, the guy that did this, I am not, because I don't want to become that guy. It's one of the most reassuring on the Richard Allen side of things that I can see in this statement. And as we go through this statement, I will be building up a picture of things that don't go in Richard Allen's favour, that are worded like potentially he's someone who's guilty of these murders, and also be trying to build a picture of things that Richard Allen says where I go, well, that's really interesting. This is a bit of leakage there, that you're talking like an innocent person, and this is phrased very much like an innocent person. I don't want to become that guy. Suggests in his head that the person who did it isn't him, which is very interesting, because he doesn't want to become that guy. And to become that guy, he has to not be that guy in the first place. He says, I had nothing to do with it. Much more reliable in terms of what we've been hearing than some of the other things. It's still downplayed with nothing to do with it. But again, nothing to do with is one of those phrases that suggests, again, that association. So once more, it's a phrase you might use if you're part of a team of more than one person and someone else has done something and you're wanting to say, nothing to do with me. You know, this person over here did it. This person over there did it. It was nothing to do with me. So it's really straightforward, blunt. I didn't do this. It's I had nothing to do with this. And once more, we have third-party mentions, the guy and that guy. So very much like being somebody's fall guy, it's the guy and that guy. We move on to another police interview now. This one happened on October the 26th, 2022. Holman, who is one of the investigators, told Allen the crime lab had results suggesting Allen had a gun on him that day. Allen laughed and said, no, they don't. No, they don't. That's a denial of the results, not a denial that he had a gun on him that day. It's not, that's impossible because I didn't have a gun with me. It's that the crime lab do not have the results, in his word, that show he had a gun on him that day. No, they don't, as a denial of the results. It's not a denial of the gun. He goes on to say, I don't even know how that got out there. This is about the round that they found. There is no way. I'm telling you that's not true. It's not my round. So I don't even know how that got out there. Now, normally I don't know. I like as an indicator of someone being truthful. If someone is truthful, they don't have a problem saying, I don't know. It's very different from someone saying, I've no idea. I've not a clue. Because normally we do have ideas and clues. But he says, I don't even know. Often quite reliable, apart from this word even in the middle of it. Even suggests there's some other things going on there. So, you know, I don't know this, I don't know that. I don't even know how that got out there. So I'm interested in his use of the word even there. For me, it lessens the reliability of the I don't even know. And then he says, there's no way. I am telling you that's not true. So there is no way. I am telling you that's not true. These are convincing statements. So it's an absolute. There is no way. You know, if we took that as truth, there's just no way of his round getting out there ever. I'm telling you that's not true. Again, this is convincing. This is stating something with authority. I'm telling you that's not true. Now, take 3 seconds to think about how a round from someone's gun could get somewhere maybe even somewhere where they haven't been, somewhere that they've never been close to. There are ways that it could happen. So this is not believable because it's complete absolute, and absolutes very often, 99% of the time, absolutes just do not stack up. When someone talks in an absolute, they're trying way too hard to convince you that this is the truth. It's not my round is very straightforward, and straightforward, direct wording is very, very believable, often an indicator of the truth. And it's not my round is very straightforward. But how does he know it's not his round? Seriously, how does he know it's not his round? If he thought he was being fitted up, for example, then he would say, I don't know how my round got out there. Okay, if you're saying that's my round, that's my round. But I think I'm being fitted up here because that I have no clue, idea. I do not know how my round got out there. But that's not quite what he's saying. He's talking in these absolutes. It's not my round. And also when he says, I don't even know how that got out there, just shows a bit of closeness to where the murders happened, where the round was found, rather, out there. So he's very aware of where that is, because he talks about there, not, I don't even know how my round got to, and naming the place, but he says, I don't even know how my round got out there. Interesting words from Richard Allen. Still to come, we're going to look at what happens when the police start involving Richard Allen's wife in the things that they're talking about. And Richard Allen, he takes a bit of a turn when he hears his wife mentioned. If you're enjoying this, could I recommend Scott Peterson talking from prison? Scott Peterson, convicted murderer, trying to tell us many years after the event that he is innocent. Does what he says stack up? You'll find that episode on this YouTube channel or podcast feed if you're listening to the podcast. And if you like divisive cases, then why not listen to my analysis of Stephen Avery talking about the murder for which he is currently serving time. Was he fitted up by the police? Was he an innocent man wrongly convicted? Or was he caught bang to rights? Again, you'll find that on this YouTube channel or on the podcast feed. And if you want to get more episodes like this, then do subscribe to this channel or follow the podcast. You will get new analysis episodes as soon as they drop. If you want a little bit more, like exclusive episodes that no one else gets apart from YouTube channel members and Spotify subscribers, you will get episodes like this before anyone else, and also exclusive content. And if you don't want to do any of that, this has been a really tough one to put together. The reward for me for that would be pressing the like button. That helps this get out to way more people. Let's continue then with the words of Richard Allen. Holloman, the detective, told Allen the death penalty could be on the line. And Allen's response was, I don't really care about living at this point. Kill me. I don't give a fuck. Go ahead. Kill me. You'll make my wife rich. I've been dealing with wanting to die for years. Once again, we've got this qualifier, really. I don't really care about living at this point. Suggests that, again, he does care about living. He might be conflicted in his mind. He may be thinking about possibilities that are going on, but I don't really care really softens it. If he said, I don't care about living at this point, that would be very straightforward, direct, quite hard. But it's, I don't really care about living at this point. So it's not as extreme as it might look when we say it. He says, I've been dealing with wanting to die for years. Remember, he spoke about the timing. It's been years since the murder. He's been thinking about it for a long time, and he's been dealing with wanting to die for years. We've got that repetition of years in there. I want to know what more about this. If I was asking questions here, I'd be going, how many years? What's been the trigger? You mentioned you've been thinking about this for years. Is that what's going on? And this is what statement analysis is very good at doing, is looking at questions that we could ask, looking at repetition and saying, can we draw these things together? For example, so I would be asking questions about 4 years. I spoke about convincing language, taking things to absolutes, and that's what we have here. Kill me. I don't give a fuck. Go ahead. Kill me. So that is him being very strident and talking in absolutes. I don't give a fuck, but we see that he really does. And he says, if he does get killed, you will make my wife rich. Interesting thought process. If I am killed, my wife will be rich. And if I am killed for murdering these girls, my wife will be rich. Is that his way of thinking of a silver lining, a positive that will come out of all of this is that his wife will be made rich. It's certainly an interesting thing for him to say at the point where his life is on the line. He's thinking about, if that happens, my wife will be rich. It's put to him the death penalty could be on the line. Now, the death penalty is a process. So that is a process where there is a trial and there is a verdict rendered, and then there is a verdict or a decision made about death penalty. And death penalty really is a process. But what he talks about has no process. It's just kill me, kill me. So what's going on there? Could be that he thinks he's going to be found guilty, and he thinks he is going to be facing the death penalty. Now, that's very different, and I want to point this out, very different from him knowing that he is guilty, and knowing that if this goes to trial, that the evidence is going to come out, his guilt is going to be proven, and he is going to be facing the death penalty. Thinking he could be found guilty could be realizing he's jammed up, or it could be realizing that there's so many things in his background, there's so many things that he's done that people are just going to go, this guy's a piece of trash and this guy is guilty. But he certainly thinks that he's jumping the process here, or is he considering the process and thinking, I'm going to be a victim of this process? He definitely, I think, at this point, believes that he is going to be charged with this murder. He believes that he is going to be found guilty of these murders. An interesting place for someone to be at. More from the same interview from Richard Allen. They didn't see me near the girls or anyone else because it didn't happen. I don't care how stressed out I get. I'm not going to say I did something to something I didn't fucking do. They didn't see me near the girls or anyone else because it didn't happen. The girls. That's a bit different from those girls. So if I took points away or looked at him as being a little bit disgusted by them when he called them those girls, and something we saw earlier, the girls is a much softer way of looking at them. Interesting logic or interesting concepts going on here. They didn't see me near the girls or anyone else because it didn't happen. It's not they didn't see me near the girls because I wasn't near them. It's just they didn't see me near the girls because it didn't happen. Again, what is it? He doesn't explain. So we've got this sort of denial thing going on with him. But when we dig down into these denials, he's not very explicit about what it is that he is denying. It didn't happen. What is it didn't happen? That I wasn't there? That no one saw me, that I don't consider I was near the girls at that time. It's very interesting when we look at what could be considered a denial. It's just not very explicit what it is that he's denying, as if he doesn't have the authentic words to deny properly. Once more, we have this third party mention from Richard Allen. They didn't see me near the girls or anyone else. Well, what I can tell you is anyone else is an absolute. And at some point that day, people saw Richard Allen near anyone else. Forget the girls for a moment. Richard Allen, living his life, would have been seen near anyone else. So we have an absolute, and it's not convincing. It doesn't prove anything at all, but that's the words that he's using. But also interesting for me there is this third party mention again, near the girls or anyone else. And he says, I don't care how stressed out I get. This is another mention of mental health. Earlier, he was talking about struggling with not wanting to live. He knows and he's aware, and he's mentioned it, that he is getting stressed out, or he could get stressed out. So I think this is an indication, along with him talking about his thoughts around not wanting to live, that he has some mental health issues there that he is well aware of. He says, I'm not going to say I did something to something I didn't effing do. Ordering is important here. So the first thing that he says is he's not going to say it. Now, not going to say it is not doing it. Yeah, not saying it is very much like I can't tell you what happened. This is not about facts. This is about what he is willing to say. So the first thing is, I'm not willing to say this. The second thing is, I didn't effing do this, which is interesting that his priority is telling us what he is going to say. His priority, the first thing that he mentions, is what he's not going to say, not what he didn't do, which is the second thing he mentions. So I think with Richard Allen, there is something inside him that he is not saying. That is very important to him. We can't tell what it is right now, but there is something inside him that he's not going to say. What's more important to him than the fact of did he do this or not do this is what it is that he can say or not say. Once again, we've got this softening of severity. I'm not going to say I did something to something I didn't effing do. So I'm not going to say that I am a murderer when I didn't murder anyone. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say I killed those girls when I didn't kill those girls. It's all softened down to something. I'm not going to say I did something to something I didn't effing do. And if you notice as well, that's a general, not a specific statement. It's just something. It could be, I'm not going to say I mowed the grass when I didn't mow the grass. That's exactly what that statement could be pointing to, as well as to the murder of the two girls. It's a very general statement. It's not a specific one. Once again, when we get what appears to be a denial from Richard Allen, it's just not specific or explicit at all. More talk about this round from his gun. There is no way possible a round from my gun ended up at a murder scene, so something is wrong. I'm not going to sit here all day and try to convince you I didn't do something. You guys are trying to trick me into saying something. For the first time in everything that we've looked at, and we haven't looked at the entirety of what was said in all the police interviews, but for the first time in these quite deep extracts that we've gone into, he talks about a murder. There is no downplaying here. There's no softening of the severity. He talks about a murder scene. So that's the first time we've seen that. However, it's just a murder scene. It's not the murder scene. So again, we've got this thing in general, not in the specific of the incident that we're talking about, the Delphi murder. It's just there's no way a round from my gun ended up at a murder scene. In the words that he's used there, that could be any murder scene at all. No way possible. Again, another absolute. And we know there are ways possible. It is possible that these things could have happened. But in his head, there is no way possible that these things happened. And then he says something is wrong. Interesting. Is that an admission that the round did end up at the murder scene, but it was nothing to do with him? Or is this just him saying, so something is wrong, that I'm being fitted up here? Once more, something is wrong. He's just not explicit about what it is that he is saying. He's holding things inside him. He's holding the full truth, the full words. His authentic experience and his authentic feelings are being held inside him. He's constricted. He's not letting a lot out. So something is wrong, but he's not willing to tell us exactly what is wrong. He says, I'm not going to sit here all day and try to convince you I didn't do something. So again, try is this admission that failure could come with it. He's not going to try to convince you because he knows it's worthless. Again, I think he thinks he's going to be found guilty of this murder because he would only try to convince. He wouldn't succeed in convincing. And we have this downplay again, convince you that I didn't do something. What? Didn't do something. Again, he's really talking in general, not about this specific incident. And he says, you guys are trying to trick me into saying something. So we've got a concept here that he feels like he could be tricked into saying something. So once more, I think we've got why he is buttoned down. I think there is a lot more that could come out of him. I think he has things inside him that he's not saying. It's not you guys are trying to trick me into lying or you guys are trying to force a confession out of me. It's you're trying to trick me into saying something. I think he realizes there is things inside him that could come slipping out that would not look good for him. More from the same interview, and Holman, I think he's one of the investigators, could be seen and heard giving Alan his theory. He told Alan, I believe the girls said something to you. You told them down the hill, then racked your gun to scare them. He says, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. Once more, not a denial. He's just telling us he's not going to keep repeating himself, and this is ridiculous. This being what's happening right now. It's not that's ridiculous. What you're saying is ridiculous. It's this is ridiculous. This is in the present tense. It's what's happening to him now, not what is put to him. The accusation that he spoke to the girls, told them down the hill, and racked his gun. That was in the past. That would be that is ridiculous. The investigators told Alan his wife Kathy believed the evidence, and Alan said, "Oh my God, I didn't do anything. I didn't murder 2 girls. I didn't help anyone kill 2 girls. I didn't scheme. Whatever you said, I was in no way involved in murdering 2 little girls." We have murder and kill here. So the downplaying has gone. So as we've gone over time, we seem to be seeing more harsh language to describe what's happened. I didn't murder 2 girls. That's not the downplaying I was seeing earlier. I didn't help anyone kill 2 girls. Whatever you said, I was no way involved in murdering 2 little girls. It's a huge shift from what we've seen before to have, in a very short space of time, 2 mentions of murder and 1 mention of kill. He says, I didn't do anything. Now, here we're back to the same pattern. It's a denial, but it's not specific. This one, I didn't do anything. Well, of course, everyone does something, but it is followed up by these much more explicit denials. I didn't murder 2 girls. I was no way involved in murdering 2 girls. And then once more, we have these third-party mentions. And I don't know where they came from. I don't know if this was suggested to him that there was other people involved, and this is why he is answering about more people, because we don't know the precise question or conversation that led to this. But once more, we have third-party mentions. I didn't help anyone kill 2 girls. I didn't scheme. To scheme, normally, you could scheme on your own, but schemes are things that, especially on the back of help anyone, I didn't scheme around this. And I was in no way involved in murdering 2 little girls. So involvement is a joint word. There is, when you're involved in something, there's a lot more going on than just what you were doing yourself to be involved in something. So once more, these third-party mentions. We've seen him refer to the murder victims in different ways, and here he calls them 2 little girls. Now, I don't know the full background of the case. I don't know who the girls were, what they looked like, or so on. But they were 13 and 14. So 2 little girls, is that an appropriate way to mention them? Or does that make me go that, why is he seeing them as 2 little girls? You know, the case, and obviously he was around there, got a lot of publicity, and maybe that is a fair way for him to think of these murder victims. But also, if I hear a grown man refer to 13 and 14-year-old girls as 2 little girls, I got some questions around that. I really do have some questions about that. From the same interview, Holman told Kathy to tell her husband to do the right thing. That's when Alan got upset, and he said, "You're going to pay for what you've done in my life. If you want to F with me, you can F with me, but leave my wife out of this. You're going to pay for what you've done in my life." Second mention of money there. Earlier on, he said that if he got the death penalty, then his wife would be rich. And here, they're going to pay for what they've done in my life. So 2 mentions of money, a bit of a subject that is going on in Richard Allen's head. And he talks about this in a very strange way. It's not, you're going to pay for what you've done to me. It's what you've done in my life. So that's very close to us, yeah? In my life is very, very close. And he owns a lot here. You're going to pay for what you've done in my life. And this is all about him. At first, it's in my life. And if you want to fuck with me, you can fuck with me. Which is strange, because his life is there, and yet you're going to pay for fucking with me, but you can fuck with me. It doesn't make a lot of sense until he brings his wife into it. But leave my wife out of this. So really, my life is about his wife, and what all this has done to his wife. Certainly a subject that is really high priority for him. The effect of all of this on his wife is very important to him. And those are the words of Richard Allen. So after all of that, what are my conclusions? Where do I sit on Richard Allen? Well, look, on the things against Richard Allen, the constant downplaying of the severity of what happened. A horrible, horrible thing happened, and he wants to minimize it down to talking about it as that. He downplays it so often. Yet every now and again he does mention murder and killing, especially towards the end of what we looked at, and we looked at it in chronological order. But if I had to go, there's a lot of downplaying, and there is a little of the no downplaying, a lot more of the downplaying. So many non-reliable denials. And again, there are so many of them that outweigh the reliable ones, where his denials are not explicit. He's keeping things in and not really saying what it is he's denying. And in the general, he could be denying that he washed the car that morning if you took the words out of what he said. They're not really that reliable. There are some more reliable ones, but again, it's outweighed massively. The non-reliable outweighs the reliable. Certainly, this is a guy with mental health issues. He talked about struggling with not wanting to live any longer, and he talked about the stress and how the stress could make him do things that he didn't want to do. So, a guy with mental health issues. And in all of that, and what was missing, there's really no attempt to clear this up, no attempt to try and help the police clear this up, get to the truth of what happened, offer his theories or so on. No, he's really not attempting to do that. There's no attempt to help the police and give them what it is that they're wanting, or help himself that much either there. And there's no attempt to get justice for the girls that were murdered at all. So lots in that for me to worry about. However, he seems very certain that he will be found guilty. And as I said in the analysis, that doesn't mean he is guilty. That means he's certain that he's going to be found guilty. Does he feel like he's in a jam? Is he being fitted up, or does he think he's being fitted up? Because he seems to have something inside him that he doesn't want to get out. He says, I can't tell you what happened. Is there something inside him that he just feels he cannot talk about? Is that why he expects to be found guilty? Interesting. And this constant concept of third party involvement that comes up. Now, I've never heard of third parties being involved. I've never heard that he's been accused of working with someone else, but it just keeps coming up time and time again in his words, are third party involvement in the murder of those two girls. What's going on there? Listen, I'd be really interested in your comments on this platform or on social media. What are your thoughts on this third-party involvement language that keeps coming out? For me, look, we know he has mental health issues. Is there some dissociative state going on where bad Richard did this and good Richard didn't? Or bad Richard made good Richard do it? I don't know. Or is it genuine third-party involvement? Does he know who did it? Did he do it with someone else? Did he make someone else do it? I really don't know. I can't tell that from the words, but third-party involvement comes through over and over again in the statements of Richard Allen. Richard Allen has also made many phone calls from prison, talking to his wife and his mother and confessing to the crime. And I think in another episode, I'm going to look at those phone calls because the wording, the statements that Richard Allen gives in those calls are very interesting. So if you want to get that, hit the subscribe button and that way you will get the next episode in the Delphi murders as soon as it is released. If you want to get it even before that, then do become a member of this channel on YouTube or a subscriber on Spotify, and you will get bonus exclusive episodes of analysis, and you will also get the main analysis episodes before anyone else. If you want to share this, I mean, the Delphi murders, divisive, sparking lots of conversations. So if you want to share this with others, then please do so. That helps this word. And this was a tough one to do. So it will make it all worth it if you share it with other people and we get more people involved in learning how to look at someone's words and also some of the possibilities that are going on in this case. And if none of that is for you, if you do press the like button, you will be my favourite person of the week just for that 0.3 of a second it takes to press the like button. Neveratruerword.com is the website address. There you will find a lot more videos looking at a lot more people in the news. You will also find more podcasts if that's your thing, and you can also find how to get in touch on social media or sign up for the monthly newsletter where you will learn a lot as well. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.